The morning sun cast long shadows across the courtyard of Kensington Palace as Catherine, the Princess of Wales, stood before her mirror one last time. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the delicate pearl necklace that had belonged to Princess Diana. Today was different from all the other royal engagements she had attended over the past 13 years. Today, she would say goodbye to a chapter of her life that had defined her identity as a royal. The announcement had come 3 weeks earlier during a private family meeting. Due to recent health concerns and the need to focus on her recovery, Catherine would be stepping back from several of her most cherished patronages. The decision hadn't been easy, but her doctors had been clear about the importance of reducing stress and commitments during this challenging time. William had been her rock throughout the decision-making process, as she prepared for what would be her final visit to the children's hospital that had become so dear to her heart. She could hear him in the adjacent room, speaking quietly on the phone with their security team. His voice carried the same weight that had been present in their conversations for weeks now. The children's hospital had been Catherine's first major patronage when she married into the royal family. She remembered her initial visit 12 years ago, how nervous she had felt walking through those bright corridors for the first time. The staff had been welcoming, but she had wondered if she would ever truly understand how to make a meaningful difference in the lives of these brave children and their families. Over the years, that uncertainty had transformed into deep, genuine connections. She knew many of the children by name, remembered their favorite colors, their dreams of becoming doctors or astronauts, their fears about upcoming surgeries. She had celebrated recoveries and mourned losses alongside families who had welcomed her not as a princess, but as someone who genuinely cared. The decision to step back from this particular patronage had been the most difficult of all. The hospital had become more than a duty. It had become a second home, where she felt she could make a real difference. The children there had taught her about resilience, hope, and finding joy in the smallest moments. They had shaped her understanding of what it meant to serve others. As she walked down the palace stairs, Catherine's mind wandered to 8-year-old Emma, who had been battling leukemia for the past 2 years. Emma always wore bright pink ribbons in her hair, and had once told Catherine that princesses were her favorite because they were brave and kind. During their last visit, Emma had been weak from treatment, but her smile had been as radiant as ever when Catherine had sat beside her bed to read stories. The drive to the hospital felt longer than usual, even though the route was familiar. William sat beside her in the car, occasionally reaching over to squeeze her hand. They both understood the weight of this moment. It wasn't just about stepping back from royal duties. It was about saying goodbye to relationships that had become deeply personal. The hospital's cheerful facade came into view, with its colorful murals and playground visible from the street. Catherine had been involved in fundraising for that playground 3 years ago, working with architects to ensure it would be accessible for children with various mobility needs. Seeing it filled with laughing children had been one of her proudest moments as a patron. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the hospital's chief pediatrician, was waiting at the entrance with several other staff members. Catherine had worked closely with Dr. Mitchell on numerous initiatives, including the expansion of the hospital's mental health support services for families. Their professional relationship had evolved into a genuine friendship, built on shared dedication to improving children's lives. The first part of the visit proceeded as many others had before. Catherine toured the new wing that had been completed with funds raised during her patronage. She met with families, listened to their stories, and offered words of encouragement. Each interaction felt more precious knowing it would be among her last in this capacity. In the cancer ward, she spent time with teenage patients who were working on art projects. 16-year-old Marcus showed her a painting he had been working on for months, a landscape with mountains and rivers that represented his hope for adventures after recovery. Catherine had watched Marcus grow from a scared 13-year-old into a confident young man who now mentored younger patients. The afternoon brought a special presentation from the hospital staff, recognizing Catherine's years of dedication and the impact of her involvement. They had prepared a video featuring messages from families she had met over the years, sharing how her visits had brought light during their darkest moments. As she watched parents and children speak about her influence on their healing journeys, Catherine felt overwhelmed by the realization of how much these relationships had meant to her own growth as well. When the formal presentations concluded, Catherine requested some private time to visit patients she had formed special bonds with over the years. These weren't the scheduled, photographed moments that usually comprised royal visits. These were quiet conversations, gentle hugs, and personal connections that had developed naturally over time. She found Emma in the playroom, working on a puzzle with her mother. Despite her ongoing treatment, Emma's face lit up when she saw Catherine approaching. They sat together on the colorful carpet, working on the puzzle while Emma chattered about her upcoming birthday party and her dreams of becoming a veterinarian someday. As the afternoon drew to a close, Catherine felt the weight of impending goodbye settling over her. The staff and many of the families had gathered in the main lobby for an informal farewell. There were no formal speeches planned, just an opportunity for people to share their appreciation and bid farewell to someone who had become an integral part of their community. William arrived just as the gathering was beginning. He had come to support Catherine through this emotional moment, understanding how difficult it would be for her to say goodbye to a place and people that had become so central to her sense of purpose. His presence brought her comfort, but also highlighted the significance of what was happening. The lobby filled with children, parents, doctors, nurses, and volunteers who had worked alongside Catherine over the years. Some held handmade cards and small gifts. Others simply wanted to shake her hand one more time or share a final memory. The atmosphere was bittersweet, filled with gratitude for the years of partnership and sadness about the ending of this chapter. As Catherine moved through the crowd, accepting gifts and sharing embraces, she could feel her composure beginning to waver. These weren't just professional relationships ending. These were connections with people who had allowed her into their most vulnerable moments and had trusted her with their hopes and fears. The realization that she wouldn't be returning in the same capacity was becoming more real with each goodbye. The moment that would later be remembered by millions began quietly in a corner of the hospital lobby. Catherine had been speaking with Mrs. Henderson, whose 7-year-old son Jamie had undergone heart surgery 6 months earlier. During Jamie's recovery, Catherine had visited several times, bringing books and puzzles to help pass the long days in the cardiac unit. Mrs. Henderson's eyes filled with tears as she thanked Catherine for the comfort her visits had provided during those frightening weeks when Jamie's recovery had been uncertain. "You made us feel like we weren't alone," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "You gave us hope when we needed it most." Catherine felt her own emotions rising as she listened to Mrs. Henderson's words. These were the moments that had made her patronage meaningful, the personal connections that had taught her about the real impact of royal service. As Mrs. Henderson spoke, other families began gathering around them, each wanting to share their own memories and express their gratitude. 10-year-old Sophie, who had been born with spina bifida, wheeled her chair closer to Catherine. Sophie had been one of the first children Catherine had met when she became patron of the hospital. Over the years, she had watched Sophie grow stronger and more confident, overcoming numerous surgeries and challenges with remarkable determination. "Princess Catherine," Sophie said, using the title she had always preferred, "will you still remember us when you're not coming here anymore?" The innocent question hit Catherine deeply. She knelt down to Sophie's eye level, taking her small hands in her own. "Sophie, I could never forget you or any of the amazing children I've met here," Catherine replied, her voice gentle but steady. "You've all taught me so much about courage and strength. Those lessons will stay with me forever." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the teenage patients from the cancer ward. They had worked together to create a special farewell gift for Catherine, a scrapbook filled with photos, drawings, and written messages from patients past and present. Marcus, the young artist she had spoken with earlier, presented the book to her. As Catherine flipped through the pages, she saw memories from years of visits captured in snapshots and artwork. There were photos of her reading stories in the children's ward, playing games in the playroom, and participating in holiday celebrations. The children had written messages describing how her visits had brightened difficult days and given them something to look forward to during treatment. One page particularly caught her attention. It featured a drawing by a child named Alex, who had passed away 2 years earlier after a long battle with brain cancer. His picture showed Catherine wearing her favorite blue dress, surrounded by smiling children and bright yellow sunshine. Below the drawing, his mother had written a note about how Catherine's visits had brought Alex joy during his final months. The memory of Alex hit Catherine unexpectedly hard. She remembered his infectious laugh and his dream of becoming a chef so he could make food that makes people happy. During one visit, he had insisted on teaching Catherine how to make paper airplanes, claiming they were almost as good as real flying. His enthusiasm and positivity had been remarkable, even as his condition worsened. William noticed Catherine's emotional response to the scrapbook and moved closer to her side. He had accompanied her on several hospital visits over the years and had witnessed firsthand the genuine relationships she had built with patients and families. He understood that these connections went far beyond typical royal engagements. Dr. Mitchell approached them, carrying a small wrapped package. "Catherine, the staff wanted to give you something to remember us by," she said, offering the gift. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with small charms representing different aspects of the hospital, each one chosen by a different department to symbolize their work together. "The butterfly charm is from the children's ward," Dr. Mitchell explained, "because you helped so many of our patients transform and find their wings. The heart is from the cardiac unit, and the star is from our oncology team, because you brought light to our darkest moments." As Catherine fastened the bracelet around her wrist, she felt the weight of all the relationships and memories it represented. Each charm told a story of a child she had met, a family she had comforted, or a milestone she had celebrated alongside the hospital community. The gathering had grown larger as word spread through the hospital that Catherine was saying her farewells. Nurses who had worked late shifts to accommodate royal visits, cleaning staff who had always greeted her warmly, and volunteers who had organized special activities during her visits all came to pay their respects. Among them was Janet, a volunteer grandmother who had been reading to children in the hospital for over 15 years. Janet had often worked alongside Catherine during storytime sessions, and they had developed a warm friendship based on their shared love of literature and children. Janet's own granddaughter had been treated at the hospital years earlier, which had inspired her volunteer work. "Your Highness," Janet said, using the formal address despite their casual friendship, "you've shown these children that they matter to the world outside these walls. That's a gift that can't be measured." Catherine hugged Janet tightly, remembering countless afternoons they had spent together in the reading corner, taking turns with different voices for story characters and watching children forget their pain for a few precious moments, while lost in tales of adventure and magic. The emotional weight of the afternoon was beginning to show on Catherine's face. William stayed close to her side, offering quiet support and occasionally engaging with families to give her brief moments to compose herself. He knew how much this patronage had meant to her, and how difficult this goodbye was proving to be. As the informal gathering continued, Catherine found herself surrounded by a group of current patients who had been well enough to come down from their rooms. They ranged in age from toddlers to teenagers, each at different stages of treatment and recovery. Despite their various conditions and challenges, they all shared bright smiles and excitement at seeing their beloved princess one more time. 8-year-old Tommy, who was waiting for a kidney transplant, had prepared a special song to perform for Catherine. With the help of the hospital's music therapist, he had written lyrics about bravery and hope set to a simple melody. His young voice, though weak from illness, carried surprising strength as he sang about angels in beautiful dresses who make scary things better. The performance brought tears to many eyes in the lobby, including Catherine's. She had worked with the music therapy program to expand its reach within the hospital, believing in the healing power of creative expression for children facing medical challenges. Seeing Tommy's courage in sharing his song reinforced her conviction about the importance of such programs. Following Tommy's performance, several other children stepped forward to share their own farewell messages. Some had drawn pictures, others had written poems, and a few simply wanted to tell Catherine about their dreams for the future. Each interaction reinforced the personal connections that had made her patronage so meaningful. The afternoon light was beginning to fade as the farewell gathering reached its crescendo. Catherine had spent individual time with dozens of families, accepted countless handmade gifts, and shared numerous embraces with people who had become part of her extended family over the years of her patronage. The pivotal moment arrived as Catherine prepared to leave the main lobby and make her way to the exit. The crowd had naturally formed a loose circle around her and William, with families, staff, and patients all gathering for final goodbyes. The atmosphere was charged with emotion, a mixture of gratitude, sadness, and love that seemed to fill the entire space. Dr. Mitchell stepped forward to offer a few closing remarks on behalf of the hospital. Her voice carried the weight of years of collaboration and friendship as she spoke about Catherine's impact on their community. "Over the past 12 years, Princess Catherine hasn't just been our patron," she began, her voice slightly trembling. "She has been our partner, our advocate, and our friend. She has celebrated our victories and mourned our losses alongside us." As Dr. Mitchell continued speaking, Catherine's attention was drawn to Emma, the 8-year-old girl with leukemia, whom she had grown particularly close to over the past 2 years. Emma was standing with her parents near the edge of the crowd, looking smaller and more fragile than usual. The latest round of chemotherapy had been particularly difficult, and Emma's mother had mentioned earlier that Emma hadn't been sleeping well due to anxiety about her treatment. What happened next would become the moment that captured hearts around the world, though no one in the room could have predicted its impact. Emma, despite her weakness and the medical equipment she was connected to, began walking slowly through the crowd toward Catherine. Her parents moved to follow her, but Emma held up a small hand, indicating she wanted to do this on her own. The room gradually quieted as people noticed Emma's determined journey across the lobby floor. Each step seemed to require significant effort, but her face showed pure determination. She carried something in her hand, clutched tightly against her chest. The crowd naturally parted to create a clear path for her, everyone sensing the importance of this moment. Catherine noticed Emma's approach and immediately moved toward her, meeting her halfway across the lobby. As they came face to face, Emma looked up at Catherine with eyes that held wisdom far beyond her 8 years. The little girl had been fighting her battle with cancer for over 2 years, enduring countless procedures, treatments, and hospital stays with remarkable grace. "Princess Catherine," Emma said in a voice barely above a whisper, "I made something for you." She held out her small hand, revealing a braided friendship bracelet made from pink and purple threads. The colors were slightly uneven, and the braiding showed the careful but imperfect work of small fingers, making it all the more precious. Catherine knelt down to Emma's level, bringing herself to the same height as the brave little girl. "Emma, this is beautiful," she said softly, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "Did you make this yourself?" Emma nodded proudly, though the effort of standing was clearly tiring her. "I learned how to braid from the occupational therapist. It took me 3 weeks because sometimes my hands get shaky from the medicine, but I wanted to make you something special before you couldn't come see us anymore." The simplicity and sincerity of Emma's words hit Catherine with unexpected force. Here was a child who was fighting for her life, who spent her days enduring painful treatments and procedures, taking time to create a handmade gift because she wanted to give something back to Catherine. The gesture embodied everything Catherine had learned about resilience and generosity during her years at the hospital. As Catherine accepted the bracelet, Emma's strength seemed to leave her all at once. The excitement of the day, combined with her recent treatment, had exhausted her small body. Without warning, she swayed slightly, and Catherine instinctively reached out to steady her. What followed was entirely natural and unplanned. Catherine wrapped her arms around Emma in a gentle, protective embrace, supporting the tired child who had given so much of herself to create a meaningful goodbye gift. Emma melted into the hug, her small frame seeming even smaller in Catherine's arms. The embrace lasted only a few seconds, but it captured something profound about the relationship between Catherine and the children she had served. It wasn't the formal, measured interaction typical of royal engagements. It was the spontaneous response of someone who genuinely cared, offering comfort to a child who needed it in that moment. William watched the scene unfold from a few feet away, and he felt his own emotions rising as he witnessed the pure connection between his wife and Emma. He had seen Catherine in countless royal situations over the years, but moments like this reminded him why she had become so beloved by the public and why her stepping back from these patronages was so difficult. The photographer who had been discreetly documenting the farewell event captured the moment of the embrace from several angles. Later, one particular image would stand out, showing Catherine holding Emma with such tenderness and genuine care that it seemed to embody everything people loved about the Princess of Wales. As Catherine and Emma separated from their hug, Emma looked up at her with a tired but happy smile. "Will you wear my bracelet sometimes?" she asked, her voice hopeful despite her exhaustion. "Emma." "I will treasure this bracelet always," Catherine replied, fastening it immediately around her wrist next to the one the hospital staff had given her. "Every time I look at it, I'll remember how brave and kind you are. You've taught me so much about courage." Emma's parents had moved closer during the exchange, and her mother's eyes were filled with tears. She had watched her daughter work on the bracelet during treatment sessions, using the craft project as a way to focus on something positive during difficult moments. Seeing Catherine's genuine appreciation for Emma's gift meant everything to the family. The moment between Catherine and Emma had captured the attention of everyone in the lobby. Patients, families, and staff watched in respectful silence as the interaction unfolded, many of them recognizing that they were witnessing something special. The genuine emotion and connection displayed in those few minutes represented everything that Catherine's patronage had meant to their community. Dr. Mitchell, who had paused her remarks during Emma's approach, felt her own emotions overwhelming her as she watched the scene. In 12 years of working with Catherine, she had witnessed numerous touching moments, but this interaction seemed to capture the essence of why Catherine's involvement had been so meaningful to their patients and families. As Emma was gently guided back to her parents' side, the energy in the room had shifted. What had begun as a formal farewell event had transformed into something much more personal and profound. The barriers between royal patron and beneficiaries had dissolved, replaced by genuine human connection and mutual affection. Catherine stood slowly, still wearing both bracelets on her wrist, and looked around the room at all the faces watching her. Many people were crying openly now, moved by what they had just witnessed. The moment had crystallized the relationships that had developed over years of shared experiences, celebrations, and challenges. William stepped closer to Catherine, offering his support as she prepared for the final stage of their departure. He could see the emotional toll the afternoon was taking on her, but he also recognized the importance of allowing these goodbyes to unfold naturally, without the usual time constraints and protocols that governed most royal engagements. The emotional intensity in the hospital lobby had reached a crescendo, following Catherine's tender moment with Emma. As she stood facing the gathered crowd of families, patients, and staff, Catherine felt the full weight of what this goodbye meant, not just to her, but to everyone who had become part of her extended family over the years. William moved closer to Catherine's side, sensing that she needed his support to navigate the final moments of this farewell. He had witnessed her strength and composure in countless challenging situations, but he could see that this particular goodbye was testing her emotional limits in ways that formal royal duties rarely did. Dr. Mitchell resumed her closing remarks, her voice noticeably more emotional than when she had begun. "Princess Catherine, you have given our families something invaluable, the gift of feeling seen and valued during their most difficult moments. You have shown our children that they are important, that their struggles matter, and that there is still beauty and kindness in the world." As the doctor spoke, Catherine's gaze moved across the faces in the crowd. She saw Mrs. Patterson, whose twin boys had both undergone surgery for congenital heart defects. Catherine had been present for both operations, spending hours with the family in the waiting room and celebrating each successful procedure. The boys, now healthy 7-year-olds, waved at her from behind their mother's legs. Near the back of the crowd stood Mr. and Mrs. Chen with their teenage daughter, Lisa, who had survived a rare form of bone cancer. Catherine had attended Lisa's graduation ceremony from the hospital's educational program just 6 months earlier, watching with pride as the determined young woman received her certificate. Despite missing significant school time due to treatment, these families represented just a fraction of the lives Catherine had touched during her patronage, but each relationship had contributed to her own growth and understanding of service. She had entered this role as a young woman unsure of how to make a meaningful contribution, and she was leaving as someone who understood the profound impact of simply showing up and caring consistently. The crowd began to naturally migrate toward the main entrance as the formal goodbye portion of the event concluded. Catherine and William walked slowly through the gathering, allowing for final individual exchanges with families and staff members. Each conversation was brief but meaningful, representing years of shared experiences and mutual respect. As they approached the hospital's main doors, Catherine noticed that even more people had gathered outside. Word of her farewell visit had spread throughout the day, and hospital staff who had been working in other departments had come to see her off. Some held handmade signs thanking her for her years of service, while others simply wanted to be present for this historic moment. The scene outside was both beautiful and overwhelming. The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the crowd, which included not only hospital staff and patients' families, but also community members who had supported various fundraising initiatives Catherine had championed during her patronage. Among the outdoor crowd, Catherine spotted several familiar faces from the hospital's volunteer program. There was Margaret, who had organized art therapy sessions for young patients, and David, who had dressed as various superheroes to entertain children during their treatments. These volunteers had become an integral part of Catherine's hospital family, and their presence at the farewell underscored the community that had formed around their shared mission. As Catherine and William made their way through the outdoor gathering, accepting final gifts and sharing last embraces, the emotional weight of the moment continued to build. Catherine could feel her composure wavering, despite her years of training in maintaining royal protocol during public appearances. The culminating moment arrived as they reached their waiting car. The crowd had formed a natural semicircle around the vehicle, creating an intimate space for final goodbyes despite the public setting. Catherine turned to face the group one last time, knowing that this would be her final official moment as patron of the hospital that had become so central to her identity as a royal. Standing before the crowd, Catherine felt the need to speak from her heart, rather than rely on the prepared remarks she might typically offer. Her voice was soft but carried clearly in the quiet afternoon air as she began to address the gathering. When I first became patron of this hospital 12 years ago, I thought my role would be to bring attention and support to your incredible work, she began, pausing as emotion threatened to overwhelm her words. What I didn't expect was how much you would all teach me about courage, hope, and the power of human resilience. The crowd listened in respectful silence as Catherine continued, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. You have allowed me to witness miracles, to share in your celebrations, and to learn from your strength during the most challenging times. You have made me a better person, and for that, I will always be grateful. As she spoke these final words in her capacity as patron, Catherine felt the tears she had been holding back throughout the day beginning to fall. The emotion was genuine and unguarded, a far cry from the composed demeanor typically expected in royal appearances. William, recognizing that his wife was struggling to maintain her composure, made a decision that would later be described as both spontaneous and perfectly timed. Rather than simply offering her his arm or a supportive touch, he stepped forward and wrapped Catherine in a full, protective embrace right there in front of the gathered crowd. The hug was immediate and instinctive, the response of a husband who saw his wife in emotional distress and responded with love rather than protocol. William's arms encircled Catherine completely, and she melted into his embrace, allowing herself to be vulnerable in a way that royal training typically discouraged in public settings. The moment lasted perhaps 10 seconds, but it felt both eternal and fleeting to those who witnessed it. Catherine's tears flowed freely as she accepted William's comfort, and the crowd watched in respectful silence, recognizing that they were witnessing something genuine and deeply personal. For William, the decision to embrace Catherine publicly was driven purely by love and instinct. He had watched her pour her heart into this patronage for over a decade, had seen how deeply these relationships meant to her, and recognized that this goodbye required emotional support that transcended royal protocol. The photographer present captured the embrace from multiple angles, though neither William nor Catherine was thinking about cameras or public perception in that moment. They were simply a husband and wife sharing a difficult goodbye, offering each other comfort during an emotionally challenging time. When they finally separated from the embrace, both Catherine and William had tears in their eyes. The crowd responded with spontaneous, gentle applause, not for a royal performance but in recognition of the human moment they had just witnessed. Many in the gathering were crying themselves, moved by the genuine emotion and connection they had observed. Catherine wiped her tears and looked once more at the faces surrounding her, memorizing this final moment with people who had become so important to her life. She raised her hand in a gentle wave, a gesture that was returned by dozens of people who had shared this journey with her. As Catherine and William entered their car, the crowd remained in place, watching until the vehicle disappeared from view. The silence that followed was filled with a mixture of sadness about the ending of an era and gratitude for having witnessed such genuine care and connection between their beloved patron and the community she had served. The car ride back to Kensington Palace was unusually quiet, filled with the weight of emotions from the afternoon's farewell. Catherine sat beside William, still wearing both bracelets on her wrist, occasionally touching them as if to confirm that the afternoon's experiences had been real. The gentle hum of the engine and the soft afternoon light filtering through the windows created a peaceful cocoon around them as they processed what had just occurred. William reached over to take Catherine's hand, offering silent support as she gazed out the window at the London streets passing by. He understood that she needed time to absorb the magnitude of what she had just experienced. The goodbye had been more emotionally intense than either of them had anticipated, and the public nature of their embrace had added an unexpected dimension to an already significant moment. "That was harder than I expected," Catherine finally said softly, her voice still slightly hoarse from crying. She turned to look at William, her eyes red but filled with gratitude. "Thank you for being there with me. I don't think I could have gotten through those final moments alone." William squeezed her hand gently. "You've given so much of yourself to that place and those families over the years. It was natural that saying goodbye would be difficult. I'm proud of how you handled it, and I'm glad I could be there to support you." Meanwhile, back at the hospital, the photographer who had documented the farewell was reviewing the images from the afternoon. Among dozens of photos capturing various moments of the goodbye, one image stood out with startling clarity and emotional power. It was the photograph of William embracing Catherine in front of the hospital, her tears visible as she accepted his comfort while surrounded by the community that had come to mean so much to her. The photographer, Sarah Williams, had covered numerous royal events over her 15-year career, but she recognized immediately that this image captured something extraordinary. The genuine emotion, the spontaneous nature of the embrace, and the setting created a photograph that told a complete story of love, service, and human connection. Sarah knew that this image would likely be requested by news outlets around the world, but she also understood the responsibility that came with sharing such a personal moment. She spent considerable time that evening studying the photograph, recognizing both its potential impact and the need to present it with appropriate context and respect. The decision to release the photograph wasn't taken lightly. After consultation with the hospital's communications team and consideration of the public's right to understand the significance of Catherine's patronage, the image was made available to media outlets with careful explanation of the context and the years of dedication it represented. The first news outlet to publish the photograph was a respected British newspaper that had covered Catherine's work extensively over the years. The editor, recognizing the significance of the image, decided to feature it prominently with a detailed article about Catherine's 12-year patronage and the relationships she had built with patients and families. The headline read, "A Goodbye to Remember. Princess Catherine's Emotional Farewell Captures Hearts." The article provided context about Catherine's health challenges, her decision to step back from certain patronages, and the profound impact her work had made on the hospital community. Within hours of the initial publication, the photograph began circulating on social media platforms around the world. The image resonated with people in ways that surprised even seasoned royal observers. Comments poured in from individuals sharing their own experiences with illness, loss, and the comfort of human connection during difficult times. "This is what real royalty looks like," wrote one social media user. "She's showing genuine emotion and her husband is supporting her. This is beautiful and human." The comment received thousands of likes and shares, reflecting a sentiment that was echoed across multiple platforms. Healthcare workers from around the globe began sharing the image, relating it to their own experiences of forming deep connections with patients and families. "This is exactly how it feels when you have to say goodbye to patients who become part of your family," wrote a pediatric nurse from Australia. "The emotion is real and the relationships matter." Parents of children with serious illnesses found particular meaning in the photograph. They recognized the type of relationship Catherine had built with families at the hospital, understanding the comfort and hope that consistent, caring visits could provide during medical challenges. Many shared their own stories of healthcare workers, volunteers, or public figures who had made differences in their family's journey. The global response to the image caught many by surprise, including royal commentators who had covered the family for decades. The photograph seemed to transcend typical royal coverage, touching on universal themes of compassion, service, and human connection that resonated far beyond traditional royal watching audiences. International news outlets picked up the story, each adding their own cultural perspective to the narrative. European media focused on the demonstration of modern royal service, while American outlets highlighted the relatability and authenticity of the emotional display. Asian news sources emphasized the importance of duty and service to community that the story represented. Television news programs began featuring the photograph in segments about royal service and public duty. Royal historians provided context about the evolution of the monarchy's relationship with charitable work, noting how Catherine's hands-on approach and genuine emotional investment represented a modern interpretation of royal service. The hospital itself experienced an unexpected surge of public attention following the publication of the photograph. Donations increased significantly as people around the world, moved by the story of Catherine's dedication, chose to support the institution that had clearly meant so much to her. Dr. Mitchell found herself fielding interview requests from media outlets wanting to understand more about Catherine's involvement with the hospital. In each interview, she emphasized the genuine nature of Catherine's relationships with patients and families, confirming that the emotion displayed in the photograph was entirely consistent with the private interactions she had witnessed over the years. Princess Catherine never treated her patronage as just another royal duty, Dr. Mitchell explained to one interviewer. She formed real relationships with our families. She remembered children's names, their interests, their fears. She celebrated their victories and mourned their losses with us. The emotion you see in that photograph is the result of 12 years of genuine caring. Emma's family, who had witnessed the afternoon's events firsthand, were contacted by several news outlets wanting to understand more about the relationship between Catherine and their daughter. Emma's mother chose to speak with one trusted journalist, sharing how Catherine's visits had provided comfort and hope during their family's most difficult times. She wasn't just visiting as a princess, Emma's mother explained. She was visiting as someone who genuinely cared about Emma's well-being. My daughter looked forward to her visits because Princess Catherine made her feel special and important. The goodbye was emotional because they had formed a real friendship. The photograph continued to circulate and generate discussion in the days following its publication. Mental health advocates praised the image for showing vulnerability and emotional authenticity from public figures, arguing that it helped normalize the expression of genuine feelings during difficult times. William and Catherine, monitoring the public response from Kensington Palace, were initially surprised by the intensity of the global reaction. They had been aware that their emotional goodbye would likely receive some media attention, but the widespread resonance of the photograph exceeded their expectations. Catherine found herself both moved and slightly overwhelmed by the personal stories people were sharing in response to the image. Messages arrived from around the world, with individuals relating their own experiences of illness, caregiving, and the importance of human connection during challenging times. I never expected our private moment to touch so many people, Catherine confided to William as they reviewed some of the public response together. But if our experience can help others understand the importance of supporting children's health care, then perhaps some good can come from this exposure. The Palace communications team worked carefully to manage the ongoing interest in the story while respecting the privacy of the families involved. They issued a statement emphasizing Catherine's gratitude for the support she had received and reaffirming her commitment to children's welfare. Even as she stepped back from certain official patronages, the photograph had inadvertently become a symbol of authentic service and genuine care in an era often characterized by carefully managed public appearances. For many observers, it represented a return to the type of royal engagement that emphasized human connection over formal protocol. As the days passed, the image continued to generate thoughtful discussion about the role of emotion in public service, the importance of authentic relationships in charitable work, and the value of showing vulnerability as a source of strength rather than weakness. The lasting impact of that afternoon's goodbye had extended far beyond the hospital walls, touching hearts around the world and creating a lasting testament to the power of genuine compassion and human connection. The moment captured between William and Catherine had become more than just a farewell. It had become a reminder of what truly matters in service to others. 3 weeks after the emotional farewell at the hospital, the global response to the photograph of William embracing Catherine continued to generate meaningful conversations and unexpected developments around the world. The image had transcended its original context, becoming a catalyst for discussions about compassion, authentic leadership, and the human side of public service. At Kensington Palace, Catherine and William were working with their communications team to channel the public interest into positive outcomes. The overwhelming response had created opportunities to highlight children's healthcare needs and the importance of supporting families during medical challenges, causes that remained close to Catherine's heart despite her reduced official commitments. We've received over 10,000 messages from people sharing their own stories, Catherine told William as they reviewed correspondence from around the globe. Healthcare workers, parents, patients, volunteers. So many people have felt moved to share how the image connected with their own experiences. Among the most touching responses were letters from children in hospitals worldwide, who had seen the photograph and felt inspired by the genuine care it represented. A 7-year-old patient from a children's hospital in Canada had drawn a picture of the embrace, adding her own family and healthcare team around the edges. Her accompanying note read, "This is how it feels when people really care about us." The hospital where Catherine had served as patron experienced remarkable changes in the weeks following the farewell. Donation levels had increased by over 300%, with contributions arriving from dozens of countries. People cited the photograph and the story behind it as their motivation for giving, expressing their desire to support the type of compassionate care they had witnessed. Dr. Mitchell found herself coordinating with hospitals in other countries that had reached out to learn about the patient care approaches that had fostered such deep connections between Catherine and the families served. The model of patron engagement that Catherine had developed was being studied and adapted by healthcare institutions seeking to create more meaningful community relationships. Princess Catherine's approach showed us that authentic relationship building is the foundation of effective charitable work. Dr. Mitchell explained during a video conference with hospital administrators from 5 different countries. The emotional investment she made in our patients and families created outcomes that went far beyond traditional fundraising or awareness campaigns. Emma, the 8-year-old girl whose friendship bracelet had been part of the emotional farewell, was recovering well from her latest treatment cycle. Her family had been contacted by several news outlets, but they had chosen to maintain their privacy while allowing the hospital to share updates about Emma's progress with Catherine. The bracelet Emma had made continued to hold special significance for Catherine, who wore it regularly as a reminder of the connections she had formed during her patronage. During a private visit to another children's charity, a young patient noticed the handmade bracelet and asked about its origin, leading to a conversation about the importance of friendship and support during difficult times. William had initially been concerned about the public attention focused on what had been a private moment of support between them. However, the overwhelmingly positive response and the meaningful conversations it had generated helped him see the value in allowing people to witness authentic emotion and genuine care. "The response has shown me that people are hungry for real human connection," William reflected during a private conversation with his father, King Charles. "They recognize authenticity when they see it, and they respond to genuine emotion more than polished presentations." The photograph had also sparked important discussions within the royal family about the balance between public duty and personal authenticity. Younger members of the family, particularly those considering their own charitable commitments, studied Catherine's approach as a model for meaningful engagement with causes they cared about. International media coverage had evolved beyond the initial emotional impact of the image to explore the broader implications of Catherine's approach to royal service. Documentary filmmakers began developing projects about the changing nature of royal charitable work, using Catherine's hospital patronage as a case study in effective community engagement. The story had particular resonance in countries with strong monarchical traditions, where the photograph was seen as representing a modern interpretation of royal service. that emphasized personal connection over ceremonial distance. Constitutional scholars wrote articles about the evolution of royal roles in contemporary society, citing Catherine's emotional investment in her charitable work as an example of effective modern monarchy. Healthcare organizations worldwide began incorporating discussions about the Catherine model of patient and family engagement into their training programs. The idea that consistent, genuine relationships could have profound therapeutic value beyond medical treatment was gaining recognition in medical education circles. A particularly meaningful development occurred when several children's hospitals announced the creation of friendship bracelet programs inspired by Emma's gift to Catherine. These initiatives encouraged patients to create handmade items for each other and for caregivers, fostering connections and providing therapeutic creative activities during treatment. The original photographer, Sarah Williams, was invited to speak at journalism conferences about the responsibility of capturing and sharing authentic human moments in public figures' lives. Her thoughtful approach to presenting the image with appropriate context and respect had become a model for ethical royal photography. The power of that image lies not in catching someone in an unguarded moment, but in documenting genuine human connection, Sarah explained to a gathering of photojournalists. It reminds us that public figures are human beings with real emotions and authentic relationships. Catherine's former colleagues in various charitable organizations reached out to express their admiration for the model of engagement she had established. Many reported implementing similar approaches in their own patron relationships, emphasizing the development of genuine connections over formal ceremonial interactions. The ripple effects of that afternoon's farewell continued to expand as individuals and organizations around the world found inspiration in the authentic care and human connection the photograph represented. The image had become more than documentation of a goodbye. It had become a symbol of the power of genuine compassion to create meaningful change. As Catherine adapted to her new reality with reduced official commitments, she remained connected to the causes she cared about through private relationships and behind-the-scenes support. The hospital staff continued to send her updates about patients she had known, and families occasionally wrote letters sharing their children's progress and expressing ongoing gratitude for her. The lasting impact of her patronage was measured not just in funds raised or awareness generated, but in the countless individuals whose lives had been touched by genuine concern and authentic relationship. The photograph of William's supportive embrace had captured a moment of vulnerability that resonated globally, but it was the years of consistent care that had created the foundation for such meaningful connection. The story had reminded the world that the most powerful form of service often comes not from grand gestures or formal ceremonies, but from the simple act of showing up consistently with genuine care for others. In an era of increasing cynicism about public figures and institutions, Catherine's emotional farewell had provided a powerful reminder of what authentic service could look like. Saipa's 501997, Keevil.com. 6 months had passed since the emotional farewell at the Children's Hospital, and the world had moved on to other stories. But the impact of that afternoon continued to resonate in unexpected ways. The photograph of William embracing Catherine had found its way into hospitals, schools, and community centers around the globe, serving as a reminder of the power of authentic compassion and genuine human connection. Catherine had settled into her new routine with fewer official commitments, focusing on her health and family while maintaining private connections to the causes closest to her heart. The adjustment had been challenging at times, but she had found peace in knowing that her years of service had created lasting positive changes that would continue long after her official involvement ended. The hospital that had been the site of her emotional goodbye had transformed in remarkable ways. The surge in donations following the farewell had funded the completion of a new family support center, designed to provide accommodation and resources for families of children undergoing long-term treatment. The center's entrance featured a small plaque acknowledging Catherine's 12 years of dedicated service and the community of support that had grown around her patronage. Dr. Mitchell often reflected on how the photograph had captured something essential about effective healthcare that went beyond medical procedures and technological advances. The image served as a reminder to her staff about the importance of forming genuine connections with patients and families. understanding that healing involved emotional and psychological support alongside medical treatment. Emma, now 9 years old and in remission, had become something of a celebrity among the hospital's young patients. Her friendship bracelet had inspired a hospital-wide program that connected current patients with former patients and community volunteers through handmade gifts and letters. Emma often visited the hospital to help teach bracelet making to newer patients, sharing her story of friendship with Princess Catherine and encouraging other children to believe in the power of small gestures. "The princess taught me that being kind is the most important thing," Emma told a group of younger patients during one of her bracelet-making sessions. "Even when you're scared or sad, you can still make something beautiful for someone else." The Friendship Bracelet program had expanded beyond the original hospital, with children's healthcare facilities in over 30 countries implementing similar initiatives. The simple act of creating handmade gifts had proven to have therapeutic value, providing patients with a sense of purpose and connection during challenging treatments. William had initially struggled with the public nature of his supportive embrace, but over time he had come to appreciate how their authentic moment had touched so many lives. He received regular updates about charitable initiatives that had been inspired by the photograph, and he was consistently amazed by the creativity and compassion of people who had been moved to action by witnessing genuine care. During a private conversation with his children, William had used the photograph as a teaching moment about the importance of supporting loved ones during difficult times. "Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply be there for someone who needs you," he had explained to them. "Love isn't just words, it's showing up when things are hard." The royal family as a whole had learned valuable lessons from the public response to Catherine's farewell. The overwhelmingly positive reaction to authentic emotion and genuine connection had influenced their approach to public engagements, with family members increasingly comfortable showing their humanity alongside their royal duties. Catherine's approach to charitable engagement had become a subject of study in universities, offering courses in nonprofit management and public service. Her model of consistent, relationship-based involvement was contrasted with more traditional approaches to charitable patronage, with case studies examining the long-term impact of genuine emotional investment in community service. 1 year after the farewell, the hospital organized a special celebration to mark the anniversary of Catherine's final visit, and to recognize the ongoing impact of her patronage. While Catherine could not attend in an official capacity, she sent a heartfelt letter that was read aloud during the ceremony. "The relationships I formed during my time as your patron changed me in profound ways," her letter stated. "You taught me that service is not about what you can give to others, but about what you can learn from them. The courage, resilience, and love I witnessed in your hospital community will stay with me forever." The letter went on to acknowledge specific individuals who had made impacts on her life, including Emma, whose friendship bracelet Catherine mentioned she still wore regularly as a reminder of the power of kindness and creativity, even in difficult circumstances. Emma's family attended the anniversary celebration, and Emma herself, now healthy and strong, read a poem she had written about friendship and hope. The poem included lines about princesses who are really friends, and bracelets that hold memories of love, bringing many in the audience to tears as they remembered the emotional farewell that had started it all. The photographer Sarah Williams was invited to the anniversary celebration to display a collection of images from Catherine's years of service at the hospital. While the embrace photograph remained the most famous, Sarah's exhibition included dozens of other images showing Catherine's interactions with patients and families over the years, documenting the evolution of relationships and the genuine connections that had developed. As the anniversary celebration concluded, Dr. Mitchell announced the establishment of a new research fund focused on studying the impact of emotional support and genuine relationship building on pediatric healthcare outcomes. The fund, supported by donations that had poured in following the publication of the famous photograph, would investigate the medical benefits of the type of caring engagement Catherine had modeled. The global legacy of that emotional afternoon continued to grow in ways no one could have predicted. Children's hospitals reported increased volunteer applications from people who had been inspired by Catherine's example. Charitable organizations noted improvements in patron engagement when they emphasized authentic relationship building over formal ceremonial interactions. In schools around the world, teachers used the photograph as a starting point for discussions about empathy, service to others, and the importance of showing genuine care for people facing challenges. Students created their own friendship bracelet programs, reaching out to children in hospitals, elderly residents in care facilities, and peers who were struggling with various difficulties. Catherine herself had found unexpected peace in the ongoing impact of her farewell. While she missed the regular interactions with patients and families, she was comforted by knowing that the relationships and programs she had helped establish continued to grow and evolve, touching new lives and creating ongoing connections within the community. The image of William's supportive embrace had become more than a photograph. It had become a symbol of authentic love, genuine service, and the power of human connection to create lasting positive change. In a world often divided by differences and difficulties, the simple act of one person supporting another during an emotional moment had reminded millions of people about the fundamental importance of compassion, kindness, and showing up for those we care about. Years later, when historians would write about this period in royal history, they would note how a single photograph had captured the evolution of modern royal service from formal duty to authentic human connection. The image of Catherine's tears and William's supportive embrace would be remembered not just as a moment of royal vulnerability, but as a powerful reminder of what true service to others really looks like. The goodbye that was meant to end one chapter had instead begun countless new stories of compassion, connection, and hope around the world. The emotional hug that moved millions had done more than capture hearts. It had inspired action, encouraged kindness, and reminded people everywhere of the transformative power of genuine human care.